So in my series on stick stoves, I was looking for an alternative fuel that I could use in my stoves in the national parks. I was focusing in on charcoal and wood pellets. One combination I haven't tried yet is my Firebox stove with charcoal. If you're interested in seeing how that turns out, stay tuned. So before we begin the test, I thought I'd take a minute to go over again why it is I'm even looking for alternative fuels for use in my stick stoves in the national parks here in Canada. So you may not already know, or you may already know, it is illegal for us to cut wood or take sticks off the ground even to use in our stoves. And now while that may seem restrictive, it makes a lot of sense when you understand the reasons why. So the philosophy of the national parks is to go with the most sound ecological practices possible. And in order for the park to survive and thrive in its natural way, you have to leave the wood where it lays on the ground, because the rotting wood is a very important component of the ecological system here in the national parks. So they are very protective, and rightly so. It's best to leave the wood where it is. So where does that leave me? It leaves me using the firewood that I buy at the kiosk at the front of the park. And they do provide some very good kiln-dried hardwood. A little too hard. It can be very difficult to cut down to size to use in the small wood stoves. That's why I began looking for alternatives in the first place. Alright, let's get to testing the Firebox stove with charcoal. Okay, before we load the stove up with charcoal, I thought I'd show you how I'm going to set the stove up. I'm just going to use it a little bit differently, and you may have seen this done before. I'm sure Steve at Firebox Stove has shown this. So, opening the stove up, dropping the plate down inside, and you'll note that this is the side with the wind damper, also the side that the ash plate is going to go in. So what I'm going to do before I put the ash plate in is I'm going to take one of the fire sticks, and right here you can see it from this side. There is a spot for the fire stick. If I can point to it with the fire stick. Right here, there's a spot for the fire stick to protrude through, and I'm actually going to insert it there. Come out the other side. There you go. And then I'm going to take the ash plate and I'm going to turn it upside down, because what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a damper to control the airflow through the bottom of the charcoal, because as you're well aware, there's a lot of holes in the bottom of the Firebox stove, and I want to be able to control just how quickly or how much air is getting to the charcoal so I can slow it down, especially when I get to a portion of the meal tonight that I'm going to show you. So in order to set this up, I'm going to insert the ash plate upside down, but you have to lift up the bottom plate or the burn plate of the stove just slightly so that it will pass over the fire stick and it will drop back down. And to keep that in place when I open and close it, there's another spot right here where the fire stick can go in flat. So I can do this from up behind. There we go. Now, the ash pan can move back and forth like a damper. Now, and you're probably thinking, that isn't that going to be hot during the burning process? Absolutely it is. So I was fortunate enough when this stove was purchased for me by my wife that it came with a few extras, and the extras were the fire sticks. If there's any accessory that I'd recommend you getting for the Firebox stove, the first one would be the fire sticks. Get the extra fire sticks. You never know if you will lose one or not, but having the extras on hand are absolutely beneficial. There's no question. So I can move this in and out. And with 2 fire sticks, you can do a lot of things. There's notches on top. You've probably seen this done before, where if I have to move it for whatever reason, I can use the fire sticks. Probably a little easier to do it this way, and pick the whole stove up and move it. So that's a bit of a benefit as well, but that's not what we're doing here in the video today. So now I have the stove set up for use with a damper. Alright, I'm going to take it down to the ground just in front of the fireplace where I'm at, and I'm showing you what I'm doing as I load it with the chunk charcoal. Alright, let's get this stove loaded up. So I'm going to start by placing in a couple of the bigger pieces in the bottom of the stove, and I'm going to do it in such a way that I don't, or hopefully don't, block the air holes too much, and I'll show you what I've got in a second. And maybe that's enough to start. And the reason why is what I'm going to use for fire starter. These are the organic fire starters that I've talked about in other videos. They're just a fiber board, and I've just already broken up. It was in the bag with the charcoal, if you're wondering why they're so black. So I'm going to light a couple of those right now and drop those down inside. I'll turn the damper this way so that I can show you opening the damper up. We'll light these. Alright, that seems to be catching flame pretty good. I'm a little concerned I may accidentally put this out, so I'm going to drop 3 of them down inside, or 1 of them broken into 3 pieces. Oh. Yeah. Alright, that looks like it's going. 1 more. Wouldn't that be my luck? My lighter's gone out. See if I can't get that going off of the other ones. Alright, now I am going to drop in just a couple more pieces without blocking or dropping them right on top of the other pieces of charcoal. And if you're thinking I'm being a little careful with this, yeah, you're right, I am. I just want to make sure I don't put those things out. Alright, a few more pieces of charcoal. Now, as that charcoal lights, and it is beginning to do so, I just want to mention a couple of things. So through the testing of my stick stove so far, I've used hardwood wood pellets and I've used charcoal. And I had started off using briquette charcoal and found out it worked pretty good. But I had also gone out and bought a bag of just the charred hardwood charcoal, the chunk charcoal as it's often referred to. And it has certain advantages over the briquettes that make it, well, I'm starting to like it much more. Certainly the briquettes are cheaper to buy right up front. They are a known size, they're a measured size. In fact, if you go to the Firebox Stove YouTube channel and watch Steve, you can place 4 of them in the corners of the Firebox Stove and then stack them alternatively, and you can get a nice even number of stacks. So you have a given size that you can repeatedly use. But I'm finding that they don't burn as efficiently and certainly not as hot as does chunk charcoal. So chunk charcoal has the disadvantage of being uneven in sizes. I mean, look, I've got pieces that are big and pieces that are little. But boy, oh boy, when I start cooking over this stuff, what a difference it makes. And you can see it's starting to take off now. So it is going to take a few minutes for this to light up and be ready. But what I'm going to do tonight that's a little different is, well, to start with, I'm actually in a national campground. I'm in Kuzpakwak National Park, and I've been here for 2 weeks. My wife and I enjoying a wonderful vacation, and I thought I'd bring the Firebox Stove along with the chunk charcoal because I'm getting to the impression now that this is going to be my favorite combination. This is almost like the old-fashioned hibachi with a lot more advantages to it. And I thought I'd try this out right in our campsite, right here on the ground in front of the old fire pit that is here. And we're going to cook our supper on this tonight. And our supper tonight is going to be sausages, pan fries, and a baked dessert done in a small oven on top of the stove right here. So I'll bring you back when the charcoal is well engaged so that I can do the pan fries first. All right, stay tuned. Okay, about 5 minutes after I put the charcoal in on top of the lit cubes, all the flame has gone out, and you can see the heat that's inside of there. It's makes it quite difficult to hold my hand there, so I think we're ready to do some frying. So my first course is going to be pan-fried potatoes. So just to give you an idea of what we like to do, these are potatoes, new potatoes this year, a little small. Potatoes are really quite nice, and what they do is we pre-boil them. So we boiled them up a little while ago. You don't have to do this, just makes it easier for cooking them. But if they're boiled, let cool, then they can cube them up, and we can put them in the fry pan with some butter, and after they're fried for a bit, I've got some spices I'll put on top of it. Quick trick, you're probably already aware of this. The fire is not producing any flame, so I don't suspect it's producing any soot either. But just to make sure that we don't soot up the bottom of the pan too much, we put a little bit of dish soap on the bottom, just rubbed it around. It does help, makes it easier. Any soot that gets on it makes it easier to get off. All right, so let's put that on over the heat. And that's going to take a minute or two for that to start melting the butter. And as that heats up and starts to fry the potatoes, I'll bring you back and show you the progress. All right, the fries have been on for a while, and they look nice and brown. They're cooking quite well. A little worried it might be too much heat. I might have to close the damper, but that wasn't the case. It's hot, don't get me wrong. It's hot under there, but not too hot. As you can see, it's not burning my potatoes at all. And Gina was just lamenting that we're at the end of our 2-week stay here in Kuzpakwak, and we have no onions to add to this or anything else to garnish it up with, but they look pretty good. But what I do have is a little bit homemade Tex-Mex. Now, I know someone's going to ask me the recipe for this. What do you put in a homemade Tex-Mex recipe? Well, quite honestly, I don't have any measurements, but I can tell you what ingredients I put in, at least as far as I can remember. It starts with a little bit of cayenne and a little bit of chili peppers and garlic and salt. Those are the basics. But to that we add, what else do we add? We add basil, oregano, maybe some thyme, and it gets crushed up a little bit, and that's what it looks like in the end. And this has been a favorite of ours around the house for a while. So whenever I start to run low, I just put it together until it looks right, whatever that is, and we mix it in. Now, I add this towards the end of doing the fries because I find that if you do it too early in the process, the flavor seems to just, I don't know, burn off or, you know, smoke away. But yeah, I think those fries are ready. Now what I'm going to do is set those aside and get the sausages on my little grill. All right, stand by. Okay, the potatoes are off, and I'm just looking down inside, and you can see I did add a couple of tiny pieces of charcoal to it, but there's a lot of life and a lot of charcoal left. I think I may just add one more or a couple small pieces here just to keep the heat going. And now we're ready to put our sausages on. So you may recall this is the homemade grill. Oh, it's snapping, isn't it? A homemade grill that came from the top of a vegetable cooker that you'd use over a barbecue that I picked up at the dollar store, Dollarama here in Halifax. And I've used it before, and it just sits on there nicely. And we have 3, what are these, Johnsonville, Gina? Yeah. Johnsonville cheese-filled brats. They're pre-cooked, so they won't take too long. They really just have to be heated, and they should plump up nicely. And 3 fits on there quite nicely. But of course, if I had more, I could be moving the grill back and forth. But all right. All right, so that's the next course on. I'll bring it back when they're ready. All right, that didn't take long. Those sausages are crisping up nicely. Starting to lose a little juice, and I'm getting the occasional flare up from the fat that's being released. But they're ready. So I will reach over and get the fries that are already pre-cooked. Carefully without that hot? Oh, it's not hot. Losing them. Set my grill apart. Put them all back on the burner just for a minute or two to reheat. Then I'll take this off and we'll get ready to do the dessert. Okay, so our sausage and potato are sitting on the table. I thought I'd just show you what dessert's going to be, and we're going to set dessert to cooking while we're having our supper. So this contraption is going to appear in another video if I don't already show that video. This is my dog bowl oven, a DIY oven made from 2 dog bowls. And if you're looking for more detail, you can see that in the other video. So what we have is one large blueberry muffin. So this starts with a blueberry muffin mix, but I walked around the edges of the property here and picked a number of blueberries to go with it. So a blueberry muffin in a small tin foil plate that is lined with parchment paper. The other dog bowl goes on top to close the thing over. Get everything inside there. And we have paper clips that we're going to use to hold it shut. Just keeps it from falling off and does make it a little bit more airtight. You can use a minimum of 3. I'm going to use 4. We have the extras here. So what I did to prepare the stove for this was I did a few minutes ago throw in a couple of extra pieces of charcoal, because this will probably take 15 minutes, Gina? Well, 15 minutes, I guess, cooking time. I closed the damper in because this does not require a lot of heat. That little oven will build up and retain a whole lot of heat. So I closed the damper. I closed the other damper on top. So now we have it slowing down as much as possible. I put the extra 2 sticks on top to support the oven. And there it is, ready to go. We'll just keep an eye on that, and we'll bring it back when it looks to be ready, when it's our dessert time. Okay. I don't think Gina could wait until I got everything ready. All right, so there's our meal. Right now, dessert is cooking, but we have sausages and pan fries, a couple of buns to put our sausages in. Time for grace. All right. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to share this meal together in this wonderful and beautiful place, Kujapaquak National Park. We ask you to bless this food and bless this day. And we ask all this in Christ's name. Amen. Let's eat. Yeah. And that's a brand new jar. Brand new jar of salsa. Oh my, don't they look good?
You're a good cook, dear.
I don't know about that. Why do I have two sausages?
One for tonight.
One for tonight. All right, I'm just going to put that aside then. I'll let you serve those up if you don't mind. All right, folks, we're not going to make you watch us eat this meal either, so I'll bring it back when it's dessert time. All right, hot off the stove. It is on some sticks. I have glove on to get the clips off. See what it looks like. I've mentioned this before, but you either got to use something like a leather glove or something in your hands, because those little clips will brand your fingers very quickly. All right, look at that, folks. Now, where's my toothpick? Yep, no, that's clean. That's done. Okay, I do have to let it set for a couple of minutes. I think I can get it out of the pan. Let's just see. But before I can take it out and cut it, it'll take a minute. How does Gina do this? Oh, they just lift it right out. Need something to put it on. There. That looks done to me. All right, we'll just give it a couple minutes to cool off, and then we'll cut it open and see what it looks like. All right, no one ever said I was a patient man. I only waited a couple of minutes, but let's cut this open and see what this looks like in the center. Oh my goodness. Oh, still hot. Oh my goodness. Woo, how am I going to show you this? How does that look? Blueberry muffin. One large blueberry muffin. Dessert for Gina and I. Actually, more than enough dessert for us. Look at the steam coming out of that. Perfectly cooked. There's a slight bit of browning on the bottom. I can see down by the parchment paper, but it didn't extend up the sides or to the top, and not enough to call what I would call burnt. It just looks good to me. All those extra blueberries I put in make it look even better. All right, I'm going to let this cool a little bit more because this would burn my mouth. Let's close this video up with a few thoughts. So what are my closing thoughts on using hardwood charcoal in the Firebox stove? Is it a reasonable alternative fuel to using wood, and especially in a national park? Yeah, actually it is. I'll be quite honest, when I started this test, I wasn't sure just how much control I'd have to exercise over the heat. And you saw that I installed the ash pan upside down to use as a damper on the bottom of the stove, so I can control the amount of airflow going into the stove. But what I found as I got cooking the potatoes and then the sausages is that I left the damper open. There was not too much heat. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of heat, but not so much that it was going to burn either the pan fries or the sausages. But then it came time for the muffin, and I wasn't quite so sure. My experience has been, especially using a gas stove, that we turn it down to its lowest point so that it takes a few minutes longer maybe, but that way we avoid burning the muffin or whatever it is that we're cooking inside of that little dog bowl oven that I have. In this case, I closed the oven up, or I closed the damper up, and after about 10 minutes, we took it off to give it a test. It had barely started cooking, so I added a few more pieces of charcoal. I opened the damper back up and let it cook for another 10 to 15 minutes. Well, you saw the results. Just a tiny bit of browning on the bottom, but otherwise perfectly cooked all the way through. And that's the thing about cooking in cooking the outdoors in general. There are no times. It's very difficult to judge temperature. There's so many variables in there that it's just an experiential thing. You have to do this for a while to get an idea of what it's going to react like. All I can do is show you my experience. Okay, so in closing, absolutely, the Firebox stove with hardwood charcoal, I think that's probably my most favorite combination yet. The only test I didn't do with it was boil water, and I feel absolutely sure it would have brought water to a boil in a reasonable amount of time. I could have had a cup of tea, but it's 26 degrees Celsius here at 8 o'clock at night. A cup of tea would have been just a little bit too hot right now. Okay, that's enough said. So if you've enjoyed this video, maybe you'll consider subscribing to my channel. I have a few more stick stove ideas I may come up with yet, but I think that's enough for now. But in the meantime, get out and explore. Take that path less traveled. It will make all the difference. Bye for now.